truck out there.
This was the man they were chasing yesterday, Ross Salmon, out there in the Renko entry. That's where the incident happened for Agostini, to the right-hand side, into the guardrail there. So the grid is based on the results from race number 1. So Salmon and Jessup starting on the front row. David Ling and Craig Wright, Gary Dempsey and Jeff Cowie off the 3rd row, Shane Smith and Shane Capitula off the 4th row, Peter Anderson and Marion Bujnowski starting on that 5th row for the first race. A mixture of improved production cars, Commodore Cup, which are right up the pointy end, and the HQs, which will have their battle within a battle towards the back, including Stav Mostris, Gavin Thompson and the Agostinis towards the back of the field here.
And what a battle that was within the pack yesterday. We had 4 or 5 HQs all duking it out throughout the entire race. A little bit of speed discrepancy at the front of the field here, we'll be honest. There's a variance in what cars and what power they have and how they make their speed. But that battle with the HQs in the middle, that is as even as it's ever going to get when it comes to racing. We also saw some cool drifting happening from that little battle pack of HQs as well. So we'll keep an eye on that today.
Those poor Kenda tyres got a severe workout, particularly down at turn number 1. Car on the left-hand side started its life as a V8 ute in the hands of Jared McLeod, who's watching the coverage, no doubt, from Melbourne today. And a big rebuild here. So Rodney Jessup take this car over. It's a former race and round winner here in the years gone by, but a lot of work. That car did have a big impact years ago.
Yeah, and it wasn't in the rear, it was at the front end of that car, and that's what I guess ultimately led to Jessup buying it. They put a new front on it, they put all chassis rails in it, they decided to get rid of the ute tub off the back and make it into a sedan. So it's been through a fair few life forms in its time.
Great way to describe. Agostini taking to the back of the field there. They've got the sledgehammers and slide hammers out on that car, so she'll start towards the back. The man with the green flag is about to wave, and the heat haze coming off this 905-metre long straight. The 440-metre charge to turn number 1 is about to begin here on race day, the Core Staff Darwin Super Sprint, the final instalment here in the top end before we move to Townsville next weekend. The improved production Commodore Cup and HQs on the support bill, looking down the straight, waiting for the lights to come on. Salmon and Jessup. Lights go out and away we go. So fairly even from the front guys. David Ling for the 2nd time bags up his Commodore Cup car and might lose 1 or 2 positions. Right to that little Mark 1 Escort moves into 3rd position, and the HQs fall back into their own little battle at the back of the field.
And Jessup had speed yesterday in the race. He was able to clear Ling and Wright and had more pace than those 2 guys. So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to run with Salmon here. But good pickup, Matt. Ling in the 14 there, he just went nowhere for the 2nd day running, almost like he just sidestepped the clutch pedal as he battles with Wright, 2 wide on the run up to turn 4 here. Great racing, no exchange of paint, but one thing Ling did do is he left a couple of 11s once again off the start line in great form. Bit of smoke coming off the rear of the number 14 entry. Cool to watch.
So round turn number 6 for the first time. That shows you the disparity between the respective categories within inside the category. The HQ is already dropping off to the back of the field as down through turn number 7. Here is Gavin Thompson on the outside already at turn number 6. And this battle went on past the checkered flag yesterday.
Bujnowski leads this little pack here, so we'll see if the other HQs can get up onto the rear of that car there of Bujnowski. Definitely when they come down this long 900-metre straight at Hidden Valley, they will be getting the benefit of the slipstream or the tow. Now, they certainly won't be getting up to 280-odd kilometres an hour like their supercars counterparts, the HQ, but the tow will come into effect. And it's almost like the less power you have, or it is the less power you have, the more effect that tow has. Right here, being defensive on Ling in the big braking zone down at turn 1. Ling looking to try to go around the outside of Wright. Can't get the job done. They'll slot back in, play a bit of follow the leader here.
I think there was a hint of flash in the headlights from Ling. She pulls out for the look down here at turn 5 on Clubhouse Corner, which was a popular passing move yesterday, we noticed in the Supercars Championship race. But Wright holds on for 3rd position as the 2 Commodores start to put a margin on the field.
And I always have a little bit of a tighten up in the body from that camera angle on the approach to turn 4 when a car pulls out like that, because difficult to see whether they're actually having a bomb or not. And you could just see there from David Ling, he had a look, but he wasn't able to get the job done. It's pretty dirty offline there too. I did a track walk during the week, and there's a lot of rubber build up from last weekend's event. So given we're a day and a bit into this event, that's only going to get worse. So I'd say David got out there, he was grip limited and decided, you know what, I'm going to fight on another lap.
Looks like a really fun corner. You're coming through a little slalom, all of a sudden you're on the brakes, but there's a lot of camber, isn't there?
And you're really heavily loaded to the right-hand side. You're flat on the throttle, even in these cars up through there. And that opening lap exchange between Wright and Ling showed Ling trying to hang on the outside and Wright up over the curb. So these cars have got attitude through there. We're now following Olivia Agostini, so that just shows she's got the Libby number plates on the rear of her car. Helps us to be able to accurately find her within the field. So they got that car repaired and she's back out, which is great to see.
And plenty of race tape on the front too.
Definitely plenty of race tape, and I would imagine that a porta power was required as well to pull some of those panels out overnight. You wouldn't have got in there without too much of a sledgehammer, I don't think. This is a battle for the lead here, Matt. Ross Salmon leading. Jessup, as I mentioned at the start of this race, it was going to be interesting to see if he could go with him, and he certainly was. So
change of position here between these two. The next to the Commodore Cups, Jeff Cowie and Gary Dempsey. So they worked their way down into turn number 7 here at lap 3 of 8. Yesterday was polluted with a safety car for several laps for the incident down here on the exit of turn number 7, but a clean affair so far in race number 2.
Curious to know, you've got plenty of notes on these cars in this field as we have a look at a replay here. This is the Ford Escort of Craig Wright, just lifting that inside rear wheel as he comes across, I'm assuming, the top of the hill, and the run down to the final sequence of corners here to come on to the long front 900-metre straight. This will be cool. Now, generally everybody running all the way out to the edge of the road there, and there's a bit of a drop-off being dug in the dirt on the right-hand side for the drivers there.
It's a similar corner to the exit of the final turn at Simmons Plains. Remember they used to have a little pothole off the curb there? And it's getting deeper, as I've noticed over the last 2 weekends there coming through turn 11, because you're committed to going left, all of a sudden it's a change of direction.
And it's always the eternal battle for circuit promoters. Do we backfill it in? Do we put a concrete pad on there? The problem is you put a concrete pad there to stop the dirt being dug out, and then typical race car drivers, and you look at there on the exit of the final corner here, they had a curb, and then they put a concrete extension out there, and then what do race car drivers do? They use all of the road and then a little bit more, and now they're digging it out more and more. So you're right, it is a very similar sequence to Tasmania, and I guess it gets to a point where it gets dug out so much that you can't use it anymore, and it sorts itself out. This looks like Olivia Agostini having a look down the inside at turn 1. She'll get the job done there very nicely.
And on Thompson as well, who's one of 3 drivers that has contested every single round. Our race leader is heading to the pits. So a big story for Ross Salmon, who comes into pit lane, puts Jessup into the lead, and that car is cruising. It's got to look at the right front of that car. So has he had contact somewhere? There's been a failure. We just don't know. But the Renko car into the paddock and won't be seen again in race number 2.
No, we don't know how that happened, but what I can tell from there is that something in the front suspension is not where it should be. The car limping almost on 3 wheels and dragging on that right-hand side. So that's an unfortunate end for Ross Salmon. He looked pretty strong yesterday, was able to convincingly win. Now, will this tell the story here as he's turned in at the final corner and had a whole heap of understeer going on where he's turned the steering wheel. He wants to go to the driver's left, and the car's saying, yeah, I can't cop it at the moment. And it looks like the low right-hand side there is possibly a flat tyre, the way that it's rubbing on the guard. It could also be that if it's a suspension failure, that the top or bottom arm has pushed the tyre up into the guard as well. So we'll see if we can get to the bottom of that. But at the minute, we know he has returned to the pit lane, and he's now out of that race, and Jessup has taken the lead.
And has an enormous margin now back to Wright in the little Mark 1 Escort, nearly 11 seconds as he starts lapping the HQ Holdens. He got the call up like so many on Monday night. They didn't even have an engine for this car coming into this weekend. They've found an engine that's done 200,000 kilometres, put it in for this weekend only, and at the moment has a very nice margin on these guys as they work through turn 1 of Wright and Ling. So the Mark 1 Escort up against the Commodore Cup car. This might tell us more, Andy, on the BP Ultimate replay for our former race leader.
So just keeping an eye on this, Matt, quite a close eye to see if we can see at any point, does that let go? Is it tyre deflating at that point? it looks like it's, from our screen that we're looking at, it looks like it's up. You can start to see now there's a little wobble coming in at the top of the rim. Now, does that suggest that it's broken something in the suspension? Just want to keep an eye on this as he makes his way. So this is a couple of corners before that final one that we saw. It's hard to pick from that, but I'm going to say that possibly a top arm or a ball joint or something in the right front there has failed. Now, let's go back to your comment that you made here about Jessup. 200,000K limited low-kilometre engine has gone in for this weekend.
Only driven on Sundays.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw a little bit of smoke coming out from the back of that car, and I can't help you have a very good record of what we refer to as the commentator's curse here. Let's keep our fingers crossed for Jessup. He only has a lap and a half to go. Low-kilometre engine, a little bit of smoke coming out. We hope he greets the checkered flag.
Well, he said to us prior to the weekend that if he could make it through the first session, they'd be stoked. So they've ticked that box so far. But we're just over a lap and a bit to go. Fingers crossed. There has been a hint of smoke out there, but that was happening yesterday during the qualifying session.
And the difference between today's race and yesterday's race, we saw the safety car come out early yesterday, and there certainly wasn't anywhere near as much lap traffic issue for the leaders. Jessup today having to navigate his way around through all these HQ Holdens, and at the time he's splitting the little battles that we saw yesterday in this cool HQ Holden field. Wisnowski still leading that HQ group. Anderson trying to chase him down, but Wisnowski has a comfortable lead. The battle here is between Anderson and Mostras in the 21.
And while the faster guys are coming through to put them a lap down, Ling has lost some 3.5 seconds on Wright. That Escort that started its life on the front lawn in Adelaide many years ago was facing certain crushing at a metal yard. It was bought for $120, brought up to the Northern Territory, where he and his dad Ian put it together, put a Z-Tech engine in, a Toyota Supra gearbox, and now one of the real iconic cars in the Northern Australian Motorsports Club. He runs in second position, but doesn't look like catching Rodney Jessup as he's on the final lap.
Such a cool story. Love hearing stories like that. It's a bit like a barn find, isn't it? Or was it up on blocks as well on the front lawn? You know, those. And then cars are taken, they're given some love, they reinvigorate them, and it's great to see them out on the circuit racing around a beautiful sunny Hidden Valley weekend.
Down through turn 7 for the final time. It's been in control of this race since Ross Salmon went back into the pits several laps ago. And we'll start from pole for the final race later today in front of this enthusiastic Darwin crowd that have been lucky enough to have 2 weekends of supercars action. Race 17 not too far away. It's into the final turn. Well, for a guy that got a call up Monday night, like so many did, and had no engine, it could have been a Flintstones car for all we knew coming into the weekend. 200,000 Ks on the clock and becomes a race 2 winner in the improved production Commodore Cup, and HQ's here today at Hidden Valley. Jeff Sutton waving the flag from the starter's box, and more than the length of the main straightaway. And drama before the end of the race. Through the dust is one of the Commodore Cup cars.
It's very late in the race for that to be happening. That looked like Smith in the 35 off over at the top of the hill on the run down to the final corner. So lucky to keep that car out of the fence. There's not a lot of runoff there. There was a lot of dust given how green the grass is. So we'll just see if there was anyone else involved in that. There's that very short runoff that I just mentioned. Smith rotating around, very lucky to not go off and make contact with either the tyre barrier there or the new concrete fence that has been put in for this year. So thankfully, no contact. He's able to find first gear, drop the clutch, and away we go.
Wow, very lucky to get away with that one. Nonetheless, the win going to Rodney Jessup, 13 seconds down the road to Craig Wright, David Ling, Jeff Cowie, and Smith would have just held on to that position with the margin that he had. Back to Gary Dempsey, then the first of the HQs. Marion Bujowski back in 7th position ahead of Anderson, Stav Mostras, and Olivia Agostini from the back of the field after repairing that car, finishing inside the top 10. Angelo Agostini back to Thompson.